Mr. Nicholas, how did Commonwealth turntables get started in the first place?
It started originally, John, at a local commercial station 7HT where I was employed in approximately 1947. A lot of viewers will probably remember that in those days practically all the commercial programs were made up of disc recordings, both music and what we called soap operas in those days, which were practically all recorded on large 16-inch discs running at 33 1/3 revs. And they presented quite a problem because in almost every case the disc had to be stopped at least twice and either a live or recorded commercial fitted in, and then the disc cued and started off again. Well, the volume of business gradually built up and we got more and more trouble in trying to handle these discs on the old 12-inch turntables. So of course there was a necessity for something bigger and better and more powerful. So I designed one, a 16-inch turntable, especially for these discs, and made up, I think it was 2 we made up for a start, and they proved quite successful. I think we made 4 altogether at that station, and they continued on for quite a few years there. And then when this company was originally formed in 1951, as the original Commonwealth Electronics, we were looking for something to make. So of course we thought, well, perhaps we could make turntables. So that was the start of our original Model 16A, which was designed with the old 7HT ones in mind. It was just cleaned up a bit, and we put it into limited production. I think at the time we thought we'd be lucky if we sold about 40, but the 16A and the smaller model, the 12A, sold I think something like 12 to 1,500.
And so now you're continuing with this 12-inch one we've got in front of us.
Well, this one is quite different to the original ones, and this one was originally designed to meet a PMG specification which came out for the National Broadcasting Service, and it was more or less designed in collaboration with PMG engineers in Melbourne. They made certain suggestions about, minor improvements which we put into it, and it's remained like that ever since.
And in fact we've got some of these right in the ABC studios now.
Yes, you've got several hundred of them, I think.
Now what about the manufacturer? Is it all done locally?
About 95% of it, John.
And
done here.
What does that involve in the first stage?
Well, the first stage is the collection of raw material, of course. We do quite a bit of our own casting, die casting. That's limited to the small components. If we could just point out here, the idler wheel, the bearing housing and the cam bracket are just a couple of items that I can think of.
Yep.
They're made here locally. And the 2 big components, the turntable and surround, are made at local foundries in Hobart.
After the casting, what happens then?
The casting's inspected, and then in the case of the turntable in particular, which is one of the vital parts, it's turned all over. It's a precision turning job, and the inside diameter of the turntable is critical because it partly controls the speed of the machine, and that is turned to a tolerance of 0.02 of an inch. The main frame of the machine, what we call the surround, is also turned all over, so we've got a true base on all surfaces to mount our different parts on.
What about other parts of it?
Well, the other parts mainly involve drilling and reaming and milling, just straightforward operations.
You've got quite an impressive spindle there.
Yes, the spindle, of course, on which the turntable revolves, is a key component and is very important. And that's ground all over and finished by diamond lapping on the surface. And it runs in a white metal sleeve in what we call a bearing housing.
Now, when you've got all the components manufactured, what about the assembly? What happens there?
Well, the assembly's quite straightforward, John. We put all the machines on this rack here, or rather we put all the surround castings on the rack, and then we just put the different sub-assemblies and components in on a sort of a modified production line. In this case, we've got one machine up to the stage where it'll run, and the others are in various stages of assembly.
Now, your manufacture involves fully professional turntables. What sort of a demand is there on a world basis now?
It's this type of machine. It's a limited demand item because it's mainly taken by professional people, TV stations, recording studios and broadcasting stations. Some hi-fi enthusiasts buy them, but of course they're rather expensive since they're made in small quantities.
How much, in fact, would they cost, basically?
Well, the basic machine is approximately $125.